All right, so that said, as I just mentioned, let's start on the 7th lesson here, which is examining the edit methods and edit view. So it says we'll examine the generated edit action methods and views for the movie controller. But first it says we'll take a short diversion to make the release date look better. All right. Now, please look up on the screen. We have done this a bit before. We're going to go in and add data annotations. All right. First thing, look up on the screen, please. We're going to open up, you can open it up now if you want to. We're going to open up under the models folder. We're going to open up movie.cs. We have to add this line. You should know that by now. When we want to do data annotations, we either have to manually add that line or have the system put it in for us. But if you look up here, this is the key thing. Now, instead of having it say date, it's going to say release date. I think maybe what was it before? Release date was one word, so we're just prettying it up a bit. All right. And what else are we doing? We're letting it know it's type date, and we're giving it a format. Again, there are other things we could do. We could give it a minimum date and a maximum date. You might say, well, what would you do for a minimum date? I'd probably go back and check and see when was the first movie ever released. And that I'd make that my minimum. And then, like I said, maybe 2 years from the current date, I'd make my maximum. Something like that. All right. So I'm just going to grab this right there. And they want us to go into modelsmovie.cs. All right. And in here, it's before our release date. So I'm just going to paste it in. Again, I'm getting all those errors because it doesn't have the using file. Put that in, boom, they all went bye-bye. You can put this, since it's not in double quotes, I can put that on 2 lines. But please add the stuff you see right here in blue. All right? Now, they're actually going to talk more about data annotations in a future lesson. All right? On the bottom, even if you're still typing, if you just stop for a second and look up on the screen here, on the bottom of this page, they talk about this. I'm not going to go into it at all, but it says to make it culture specific, different countries have different ways that they do the current date, right? I think that the Chinese New Year literally is what they think it is in China, right? And they're like, yeah, you guys are nuts out here in America type of an idea. But we could make it culture specific. We're not going to do that. Again, the author mentions they'll talk about data annotations, not just in the next tutorial. It's actually going to be covered in a couple of tutorials. So what I'd like you to do, please, is 2 things. First, where we are right here, click your double disk icon to save everything. Then go down to your movies views. All right. And doesn't really matter. Let's go to, we can just go to the index. That's fine. And run it in the browser. View it in the browser. And you will notice that hopefully soon after it comes up, release date will be 2 words. Again, not that that's that big a thing. That's aesthetic. You know, that's almost like adding CSS, to be honest with you. You know, people could read it fine without that. You see it. Notice it changed the format too. So we told that we wanted it this. Any clue as to why we might have wanted that format? That's how it's stored in the database. Year, dash, month, dash, day. All right? Again, we didn't have to do that. But the author also says, if you take your mouse and you put it over any of these 3 links, notice down in the status bar, or the bar way down to the left, it's edit-1, details-1, delete-1. It knows the current ID. All right? Now, they do mention, the author sort of gets off on a tangent here. Maybe it might be over your heads, and the only reason I say that, it's over my head. But the author says the edit link that was created, this thing right here, this edit link, if you put your mouse over it, it'll show you how it's set up. And they do mention it again. There's another one of these HTML helper objects. Notice the one that we're using here is HTML.ActionLink. And as it says, it makes it easy to dynamically generate HTML hyperlinks. You know, again, to go back kind of to Colin's point before, couldn't we have just done it and put in the A and href ourselves? Yes. All right. And then the author says, examine the following code from app start. All right. From app start route config. It says the map route method is used to route HTTP requests to the correct controller. It's also used by the HTML helpers. So when we look in here, we don't have much in here right now. We already talked about this yesterday. That's the default one. If we're not using the default one, we basically have to provide it the name of the controller and the method that we want it to run. Does that make sense? And that's what they're showing here. All right, the author says, open the movies controller. There are 2 edits shown. We did look at this a little bit before. The first one is our get. The second one is our post. You can see virtually the entire get one on your screen right here. It's going to check, and it says if you don't have any ID, it's going to bring up an HTTP status code result of a bad request. What is that? You've already seen this. Again, if I come in here and I go to movies, okay, if I come through here instead of all that, bad request. Does that make sense? You're asking for something, the system does not know how to answer your request. If we do put in something that's valid, all right, if we do put in something that's valid like that, it attempts to find it. If it can find it, but there's nothing in it, you'll get a not found error. Why would that happen? All right. If somehow, that typically should not happen, but if I'm able to remove a record but somehow keep its ID, that's when that would get hit. All right. Otherwise, just return to me all the movie data. That's what it's doing. That's the get. The post is after we make a change. The system checks to make sure that everything that we put into the system was valid. If it is, all right, we set the movie state to modified, we save the changes, and we push them right back to the page they were at. Right? And that's it. If for some reason this wasn't valid, we return view movie. We push them back anyway. Okay? Again, they talk about that validate anti-forgery token to set it up so that, again, it's harder for people to put bad things into your system. We talked yesterday about the HTML edit for. This, notice the validation message for. Remember before when after we put stuff in and then I left the price empty and I left the date empty? That's those things. Why am I telling you that? Because it is possible for you to go in and customize those if you don't like the verbiage that they have. The edit method, as it says, it takes an ID and it tries to find that particular movie. If it can't find it, you get the HTTP not found error. All right, it's close enough. It's 2:13, so let's take 10 minutes and let's make it 2:25, and we're going to pick it up on where it says processing the post request. Yes. It is always the one under it, and you can put literally with some of them. There are up to, I'd say, 20 or so different things that you can put in. Yeah, and yes, by default, it's the one right under it. And to my knowledge, the order in which you put those 20 or so does not matter. All right, so to continue on then with this lesson, processing the post request is where we are. I've already given you my take on this, but this is the code up here. And the author says right below it, okay, pretty much what I just said. The model state that is valid verifies that the data submitted in the form can be used to modify, all right, edit or update a movie object. If it is valid, the movie data is saved to the movies collection, and then it's saved to the database. As soon as the client-side validation determines that the field's values are not valid, it gives you an error message. If you look on the screen, you already saw this. That's what I showed you before. With the release date must be a date and the price thing, etc. All right? Now, it's an important thing to realize if you look at this note here that's up on the screen. Okay? They're talking about Jquery validation, but that isn't what's important. What I want you to understand is this. That data that's being validated, if you remember this, that I just showed you, this thing, that's happening on the client side. The server isn't doing that. It's validating on the client, and only if that model.is valid is true does it go over to the server. Because otherwise, if you ask the server to do it and it's bad, you're putting extra work on the server. There's no sense in doing that. All right? So the author says here, you can get the Jquery non-English validation from NuGet. All right? We don't need to worry about the non-English validation. But I do want to show you something. Could you all please look on the screen here for just a minute? I don't know if we're going to end up doing this, what I'm about to show you in this thing or not, but there's many ways what I'm about to show you, there's many ways I can do this. I can click Tools, and I can go to NuGet Package Manager. See that? So I can do that, and that's going to bring up the Package Manager. All right, I can bring it up in different ways. In the next, I think it's the next video, we're going to use this console. So you'll see that in a minute. Or I can click View, and somewhere over here is the NuGet Package Manager. I don't remember where, but it's over here under one of these other windows. It's here someplace. Or I can right mouse click on the name of my project, and I can choose Manage NuGet Packages. So why am I telling you that? Because, for instance, if I click over here, if there's something I don't have that I want, this will go out and find everything. So if I click on Installed, that's showing me everything that I currently have in here. Does that make sense? And you'll notice that one of the things there is the entity framework. All right? And if I keep looking, there's jQuery. All right? But if I click under Browse, and I click, for example, JQ for jQuery, it'll look and see if there's a bunch of other stuff I don't have. Knockout, JQ.net, etc. So if I wanted one of those, all I would have to do would be to click on it and then click Install. If there's something that I have that I don't want, so for instance, if I click on Install here and I don't want jQuery anymore, I can click on it and choose Uninstall. The reason that that's important is if I had an old version of something, I could uninstall the old version and then install the new version. Does that make sense to everybody? All right, I just wanted to run through that quickly, mention it to you, okay? All right, so they show some of doing that then on pages 14 and 15, okay? And that's pretty much it, I guess, for lesson 7. So let's keep going and go on to lesson 8 of 11. We're making good progress on this. So lesson 8, as they say right here, is on searching. Add a search method and a search view. So we'll add search, an action search method. Why? As it says right there, let's imagine for a minute we had more than one movie. We had lots of movies. We want to be able to put in a genre, like comedy, action, suspense, whatever it is. Or I want to just search for a movie. I just want to know, do you have this movie? All right. There are a lot, I'm sure you know this, there are a hell of a lot of really bizarre movies that have been made over the years. I don't mean dirty movies. You know there's plenty of those. But there's just a lot of bizarre movies, period. And you might think, well, you know what, this movie was made 30 years ago. They probably don't have it. But if you could search through that, and they did have it, all right, then you could buy it. And plus, I would know the next time, well, if I'm looking for obscure movies, I might want to come to this site. All right, so the first thing it says here that we want to do, it says start by updating the action method of the existing controller, of the existing movies controller class. So I'm going to grab this, I'm going to copy it to the clipboard. And if you would all please, go to your movie controller class. So go under controllers and open up the movies controller if it's not already open. And underneath there, right near the top, find the index method. All right. Right now, all it's doing is this. It's just returning a list of movies, correct? That's all it's doing. We are supposed to change that. I'm just going to comment out all these lines so I can keep the old ones in there. And maybe that's a bad thing to do, but I'm just doing it that way anyway. This is what they want you to put in. So I'll give you a second. Please put that in, then we'll go over what it means. And yeah, I know it looks a little bit strange. It's only because it is a little bit strange. We're going to do this one, And I think we're going to stop for today, even though it'll still only be around 3 or so. That's fine. I'll give you some lap time. Because that means today we went over 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. We went over 5 of these lessons. That's pretty darn good. We'll do the last 3 tomorrow. We should be able to do that and still have plenty of lap time. That's about as big as I think I can make it. Oops. No, what happened? Everybody have that done? Colin? Are you still going? Okay. First thing, before we start talking about this, I'm going to tell you this. Again, something I may have told you before, may not have. I don't know. Does anybody know what Microsoft's official website is for ASP.NET? Guess what? It's ASP.NET. That literally is. Kind of cool. And the tutorial we're going over now, a lot of other tutorials are out there. There are videos out here. You could spend days just going through it. Doesn't look like it, but there really and truly is that much stuff if you wanted to go look through it. All right. First thing is, would you agree this line right here looks a little weird? That might be, unless we did it before, I don't remember, first time you've seen link. Link is an acronym that stands for line item or line integrated, depending on what documentation you read, query. And it looks a lot like SQL. It's meant to operate like SQL, but the difference is you can use it on any data store. So in other words, I can run link on a database, on a spreadsheet, on an array, on a list of values. You cannot do that with SQL. SQL is only designed to work with a database. So the syntax is different. The select comes at the end from, and notice it's in. All right. So we would have said something like select M from db.movies. Well, again, the syntax is a little bit different. And then this right here says as long as that wasn't empty. In English, that line that's in blue says if we have one or more movies. Does that make sense? So it's telling it here, it is literally telling it right there up in the blue on the screen. It's saying, hey, look through the movies database. If you find anything in there, you're going to show it to me. But if you don't find anything in there, all right, then this right there, and I think I mentioned this to you before, but I'm saying it again anyway, that line that you see, line 25 that's in blue, that's what's called a lambda expression. Lambda. It's the equivalent in JavaScript of an anonymous or an unnamed function. The key thing right here is this. That's what's going to hold everything. So whatever comes to the left of the equal sign followed by the greater than sign, that's the variable that's going to hold the results. This is what we want to run. So what it's saying here is, if it was an empty, go through, grab all the data for that movie, shove it into S. Does that make sense? Basically, what it's going to do is it's going to just return movies, but that's in there if we want to use it later for anything. So again, the first line that we saw up here, that was the link query. All right? The query, they say, is defined at this point, but it has not been run against the database. Then, again, if the search string parameter contains a string, the query will be modified so it only gives us the information that we want. Now, please look up on the screen here. On your handout here, this is page 2 of the handout. I don't know exactly where it'll be here. Right there, they give you probably a much better definition of a lambda than I just did. So look at that if you get some time. You're going to be writing these. For them to make some sense, it's kind of important that you look through and you see what it's doing, how it's doing it, etc. When you go and work with lambda expressions, almost always, please listen to this, almost always when you write a lambda expression, you could rewrite it as a link query. Did you hear that? And vice versa. Not always, but most of the time. So why would you write one as opposed to the other? In some ways, it's a matter of taste. It really and truly is. You can use either one. Which one do you use? The one that's easier. I think we talked about this. Somebody, maybe Colin, it was you who brought that up when we were talking about databases. Somebody did. It's like, what if you really hate subqueries and you never want to use them? You can almost always write a subquery as a really detailed join, or vice versa. So which one do you use? Yes, you use the one that makes more sense to you. The one that's easier, the one that runs faster, whatever it is. All right. So now the author is saying this. Again, looking at the screen here, let's save everything. Let's do a save all. Then let's run the program again. Now, I've changed the controller, so I was running this. I'm going to stop my run because I changed the controller. So I'm going to run this again. Now, you know as well as I do, we only have a single movie in here, right? That's it. We'll change that in just a minute. But I'm going to come here. I didn't go over to movies, so I'm going to. So I'm going to go over to movies, index, question mark. I'm going to say search string equal, and I'm going to put in there comedy. There it is. Now, before we do this, let's add 2 or 3 more new movies, okay? They show you some in here. So if you want to follow my lead, fine. If you want to put in something else, then do that. But I'm going to put in here Ghostbusters. I don't know what the hell that just did, but Ghostbusters for the day, month, and year, 3/13/1984. It's a comedy, and the price is going to be $8.99. All right. Everybody see that? It's also in the handout. So Ghostbusters, 3/13/1984, comedy, $8.99. Put that in. Now I've got 2 movies. I'm going to click Create again and put in Ghostbusters 2. The date on that will be 2/23. 1986. That's another comedy. And that one is also, no, that one's $9.99. All right. Would you agree? Looking at the screen right now, I'm going to click Create. We now have 3 movies. Everybody agree with that? But notice now, if we come back here, and under Movies, if we go to Index, and we say question mark, category equals comedy. Probably did it wrong, but let's see. Double check. Search. Well, it came up with everything, which is fine. But I want to come in here and say index question mark search string equal comedy. All right. Why didn't it show me anything? Let's try it again. Oh, it's looking for part of the word. So how about if we put ghost in there? See how we can now search for movies? Now, we can put in stupid stuff. For instance, When Harry Met Sally. Harry met has got a T in it. Ghostbusters has got a T in it. Ghostbusters 2 has got a T in it, right? So if I just put in T, it finds everything. If I come in here and I put in Z, I don't get an error message because it's not illegal. There's just nothing in it that has a Z. If instead of a Z I put in a 2, why did I get that one? Because it's Ghostbusters 2, right? So now I have the ability to go in here and search based on a movie title. So let's stop for a second here and let's look at what's in here. In fact, I'm going to stop the run here. So here it is. So again, what am I saying? I'm saying go through here and select everything from the movies table. And I'm setting up a search string, and I'm saying if the title of the movie contains that search string, show it to me. All right, I'm asking you again, does that make sense? That is just a way that we can go and iterate our way through here. Again, they do a much more extensive job, probably than I'm doing, of explaining that in here. Now, one more thing. Please look up on the screen. If I'm somebody running this program, and now I've got to come in here, let me run it again. I stopped the run. All right, so I'm running this program, and I want to search. So when it comes up, okay, I didn't go there, but I got to come back up to movies, slash, all right, whatever. But I want to come in now and I want to search. All right, give you the exact thing again. So it was movies index. All right, question mark, search string, equal, and the example they used was ghost. Boom, shows it to us. That's no big thing. And you learn how to do that based off of what was in here. Well, the author says, you know what? We can make this even easier. Please look on the screen here. We're going to add one line right here. We're going to say string. Whatever. Stop the run. So we got to come in here and say string, search string. Please look on the screen. That search string is now this search string. Get it? Search string. And I want to set that equal to ID. And I get an error. Why? Because that shouldn't be search string anymore. Look on the screen. This will now have to be int In fact, they still are calling it a string. String ID. So search string equal ID. So we changed this line in blue, we changed that line, and we added this line. Please make both of those changes. All right, save, run the program again. Now, I want to see if I can still run it the, quote, old way, unquote. So I want to come in here and say /movies /index question mark search string equal ghost. Can I put that in? Now it gave me everything. All right. But if I change this, instead of that you see up there, now if I put in /ghost, notice what I get. All right. Why? Because we said we were passing in an ID. All right. And we said that's a string, use it the same way. But what we got now, when we ran this, for lack of better words, all right, I don't know if you've ever heard this term before. We're getting there. We're not there yet. That's a prettier ID. That's literally, or prettier URL. That's what they call it, is a pretty URL. With a true pretty URL, you don't have a question mark with a bunch of junk after it. Everything is contained right in the URL itself. So somebody could tell that we're searching for ghost. Again, if I put in here Harry, boom. Also, did you notice this? See that search for Harry? Case insensitive. Kind of nice. All right. Then on page 6 it says, however, you can't expect users to modify the URL every time you want them to search a movie. So now you'll add a UI to help them filter movies. If you change the signature, all right, change it back. So they want us to go and change this back again. I'm going to stop the run, go back to here, and I'm just going to Control Z my way back. All right, they want us to do that. Make it look the way it looked before. So that it takes a string parameter named search string. Everybody got it back to this? Again, Control Z is the fastest way, but you don't have to do it that way. Then go to your Views folder. Go to your Views folder. And in your Views folder, all right, under Movies, find your index.cshtml file. Bring up your index.cshtml file. No, I should be. All I want is to be in find method. I don't want to change anything. So let me go back up to the top. All right. They tell us to go in here and search for or find where it says create new create. Oh, I'm in the wrong file. Okay. Yep, you're correct. Let's close that and open up the index. Yeah, it was close. That was only one file away. All right. And where it says here, create new create. All right, right here. Everybody see this? It says right after that, okay, it says add the form markup as highlighted below. All right. Well, let's take a look, because again, it's much easier. I want to grab it out of the book or out of the handout so I don't screw it up. Of course, I got to jump there, so. Here we go. So again, it says here, just after the action link, create new, etc., add the form, make the form stuff that's shown below. This, right here. I think we've got the rest of it in there already, but this is what we need. Paste that in just like there it is if you need it. What we just added is what's in blue. And they mention on the bottom of the page there, it says the HTML.begin form creates an opening form tag. It causes the form to post back to itself when the user submits the form by clicking the filter button. Leave that up there for just a second. Now, going on, they mention on the top of the next page, it says Visual Studio 2013 has a nice improvement when displaying and editing view files. Well, the bottom line is this. We're using something later than that, so we still have that available to us. All right. It says with the index view open in Visual Studio, tap Control F5 to run the application. Okay, we can do that. That's fine. So, bring this up. We're in our index file. Tap Control. In fact, I'll save first. And then tap Control and hit the F5 key. And it says it's going to run it for us. It's going to put us right there. And then it says, try searching for a movie. All right. Do you see what we just added on the screen there? Now, when you have 3 movies, it looks pretty stupid to have a search bar. I agree with that. That said, all right, if you had 300 movies, it'd be nice to have this. Not only that, when you look at it, it's not formatted very well. You see what I mean when you look on the screen here? At a minimum, probably, after that title, we should have had a line break. At a minimum, that would have made it look a little bit nicer. All right, you can put that stuff in if you do want to. Let's see if we can put that in here. All right, so input there. They did put in one line break. Let's put in another one. All right, again, will that look nicer? I would think it's going to look a little nicer. And since I'm in the index file, I can go right back to here, and I can refresh, and there it is. See this? Now I've got 2 line breaks. Looks a little nicer. And they say now you can go in here. Now if I check for ghost, boom, there it is. All right. And I have said this to you before. If you find what I'm about to say offensive, then I apologize in advance. All right. But what are we doing right here? For lack of better words, would you agree with this? We're kind of assuming that the person running our program, they're not an idiot, but they're naive. We want to make it as simple for them to do something as possible. Worded another way, we want to make it as hard for them to screw up as possible. It's much easier. Look at this. Can we still come up here and type in /Harry? No, because we changed the code. But that I think at least, I don't know if you agree or not, put that X back in there. It's much easier to type Harry in here and get that. All right. Kind of an important point here if you look up on the screen. We're just about done. And I realize in some ways at least this stuff's pretty dry. All right. But if we look here, again, it's important that you at least see this stuff. Where are we? Must be up higher. Let's see. All right. Please look up on the screen because this is one of those, oh, okay, moments, but it's important. Notice, index does not have an HTTP post method. The author says you don't need it because index is kind of like your home page. It's designed to show you things, but it never changes anything. Did you all hear that? That's the way that it should be set up too. All right. So the author says you could add the following HTTP post index. In that case, the action invoker would match the post index method, and the index method would run as shown below. So we could do it like that. We don't have to put that in. You can if you want to. So we can grab this, and I'm going to copy it to the clipboard, come back here, and right underneath, so I've got to go back to my my controller, my movies controller, and right under the action result that we have, we could put in the other one, right there. All right, the post one. But the author's saying that it's not necessary. Again, you can do it, but it's not necessary to do it. Didn't get any error. It says, even if you add this version, there's a limitation in how all of it is implemented. They talk about bookmarking and doing a lot of other stuff. All right? So can you do it? Yes. Should you do it? There's really no need to. All right? The author says, if you really want to do that, please look up on the screen here. All right? It says, going back to over here, look on the screen again. Where were we? We were at our index.cshtml. When we have this using thing, see this right here? All right. This literally has overloaded methods. You know what? Remember overloading? Okay. We had talked about overloading and we talked about overriding. So for instance, I gave you the example of overloading where we had a message called add to, and if we passed in 2 ints, it would add 2 ints. If we passed in 2 floats, it would add 2 floats. If we passed in 2 strings, it would concatenate them. So in other words, it would be the same function, basically, but it would have different parameter lists. It says replace the parameter list one with this one. So look, if you look on the screen, they want you to replace that and put in this. Index, movies, form method, dot get. All right. Previously, what is in blue was not shown there. It was empty. All right, now we've added something to it. Everybody have that? Save everything if you haven't saved it. And the author says here that if you went and did that, it says now when you submit a search, the URL contains a search query string. Searching will also go to the index method, even if you have a post index method. All right, it'll automatically go to the get. So again, if I come through here and run this, it's going to actually look a little different. See on this, I typed in Harry, right? Look on the screen, I typed in Harry, correct? All right, but you don't see Harry up here. I'm going to stop the run. All right, I'm going to do a save all, and I'm going to run this again from my index file. So I'm going to run it, right mouse click, and I'm in the wrong file. I want to run it from index here, and I'm going to say view in browser. Should still look the same, but now notice when I type in Harry and I hit enter, okay? Well, I spelled something wrong. It's got mo views, so I screwed something up. But you see what it has in here now? It's now passing that, search string equal Harry. So I typed something wrong. Let me see if I can fix it. That's it right there. See that? Okay, I think that was supposed to be movies. So let me stop that run and start the run again. All right, and I probably didn't have to do that because I'm working still in my index.cs HTML file, but let's see if it works now. All right, so again, Harry. There's when Harry met Sally, and you now see it up here. Is there an advantage to doing that? Depends on the sophistication of your user. Most of them are not going to even notice that that's there. Probably wouldn't matter to them one way or the other. All right, we're just about finished. I'm on page 11 of 12. We want to add one more search, and that is we want to be able to do a search of genre. Okay, it says if you added the post version, delete it now. So, I think I did. I'm going to double check, so I'm going to go to my movie controller. All right. No, maybe I didn't. All right. It says next you'll add a feature to let users search for movies by genre. So we are supposed to replace index, because right now all index is doing is it's searching, but it's searching by title. They want us to be able to search by genre. So we put in a different index in here. So I want to just grab this whole puppy. I'm going to grab the whole thing, copy it to the clipboard, go back to our code, highlight all of index from the get-go, remove what's there, and replace it with this. All right? So if you want to go and copy what I've done, make that a little smaller. That's what you got to put in. Again, if you feel like typing, go ahead and type. I would recommend you go to the handout, grab all the code, and paste it in. All right? It's right near the end of the Lesson 8 handout. All right? Yes? It's replacing it because we removed the one that was there. But, you know, it's up to you. Could you do both? Yeah. Now you got to remember, when you got all that stuff showing, when do you get to the point when you're screwing with a user and you're making it harder for them to use? The other thing you could do, and this would take some work, you could put in a drop-down list and say, do you want to search by? You could search by any of those fields. So you could search by title, you could search by genre, you could search by release date, and I don't remember what the other one was. All right, but you could search in price. So you could search by all those. That would be cleaner. Doing it that way would be much cleaner than putting 4 different searches in here like this. I don't know, because I'm not a Microsoft, I don't work for them, but my guess is the reason they did it like this is they figured they're showing you 2 different ways, but they're also trying to make it so you can understand what they're doing. All right. Again, I can't tell you that for sure. And in fact, right at the end, they're going to add markup so you can have them both. If you look up here, Colin, if you look right here, what they end with is that. All right, let's take a quick look at the code that we just put in there. Allow us to search by genre. All right. Well, we're passing in a genre. We're passing in a search string. All right. Now it says here var genre lst equal new list of type string. A list is like an array. Did you hear me? It's like an array, but unlike an array, a list you can add to and remove from. So where an array in C# is early binded, a list is late binded. So we're having a list in here. All right. Then we write a link query. We're telling it to select the genre from the movies and order it by genre. That sure would make sense, wouldn't it? That would put all the comedy movies together, all the suspense movies together, all the action movies together, etc. All right. Then we've got here genre list.add range. Well, we might have 500 action movies, but we only want to have, we want all of them to be collected under one heading. Does that make sense? All right. Then we're doing another thing in here, and we're doing pretty much what we did before. Again, if it's not empty, grab me everything for the search string, and if the genre is not empty, grab me everything for the genre. So it says this version takes an additional parameter, namely movie genre rather. The first few lines create the list object to hold the genres from the database. We just mentioned right here. There it is. All right. The code, as it says, uses add range to add all of the genres to the list. So remember, I mentioned this to you before. This is one place where this example, for lack of better words, kind of breaks down, because if you put in comedy and then you spell comedy in there again wrong, that's 2 different genres. If you had made it a drop-down list by putting genre into a different table and then linking it to your movies table, you'd have a drop-down. What you should always be striving for as a developer is to make the person running your program do as little work as possible. Why? Why? Why do you want the person running your program to do as little work as possible? That's right. You're making it as hard for them to screw up as possible. Nothing's totally foolproof. All right? So it says the following code shows how to check the movie genre if it's not empty. That's the other thing that's in there. So, as stated previously, this query is not run on the database until the movie is iterated. Okay? That's not late binding. Look on the screen. These are I can tell you, because I've read articles on this. If you ever plan on applying for a programming job, doing stuff like this, they will ask you what this is. This is what's called lazy loading. When you lazy load something, you don't technically run it against the database until you need it. when you've got eager loading, you run it right away. Sometimes it makes sense to do that. Other times, think about why. If I've got a database and it's got 1 billion records in it, I want to lazy load it. I don't want to run it until I have to run it. Does that make sense? But if I've got something as small as this, it doesn't really matter one way or the other with 3 or 4 movies in it. All right. Adding markup to the index search to support search by genre. It's the bottom of page 12 on this handout. All right. And the author says, add an additional HTML drop-down list to the movies index CS HTML file just before the text box helper. Okay, so right there, you've already got this in there. So we want to go to our index.cs HTML file. Everybody, please go to your movies index, your views, movies index.chtml. So movies, views, or views movies, index.cs HTML file. Open that file up right here. All right. Then, right before the paragraph that's got title in there for the search string, so there it is, title for search string, drop in this. Put in that line. This code is going to add a drop-down list, all right, and it's going to allow us basically to show all the genres. You'll notice in there that it says all. Everybody see the blue? See where it says all? It's an option label. They mention in here, if you inspect that choice in your browser, you'll see that its value attribute is empty, since the controller only filters if the string is not null or empty. If you put in an empty value, it'll automatically show all genres. Default is show me everything. Does that make sense? All right, that's probably typically what you'd want. Okay? It says on the bottom here, I'm on page 13, you could also set an option to be selected by default if you wanted to do that. So if you wanted comedy, all right, to be your default, please look up on the screen here. You don't have to do this unless you want to. The author says we could go into our movies controller, all right, and where we've got something right here. See this? Everybody, see this? If we wanted to, we could add in here comedy, or I'm sorry, comma, comedy. That sets a default. Do you have to do that? Hell no. But by default, if you don't do that, I believe the drop-down list will be empty. You know, as far as what's shown there. So does it matter? Not really. All right, so let's do a save all. Let's run the application and go back to our movies index. So I'm just going to run it from there. I'm going to go back down to my index under my views movies, right mouse click, and I'm going to choose view in browser. See what have we got? What we've got now? We've got them both. All right. It says try search by genre, by name, and by both. So there's comedy. If I change it, there's my drop down. All right. I only have comedy in there, correct? If you want to play with this, you know, go back in and go to create new, fact, this is what I can show you this because they're going to have you do this later. But if you click Create New, I'm going to come in here and put in, title is Rio Bravo, which is an old movie with John Wayne. I don't remember the date, so I'm going to make one up. 02/03/1950. The genre will be Western. And, oops, I don't want that capitalized like that. And the price, we'll just make it $5.99. All right. And I'll click Create. Now I've got another category. Notice, look on the screen. So now if I go back to Western and I tell it to filter, there we got it. If I say all and I say anything with an O in the title, what's missing? When Harry Met Sally, right? All right. So what we did was we added a search action method and a view that let users search by either title or genre and title. Either one. Any one of those three. So in the next section, we'll add a property to the movie model, all right, that'll automatically create a test database for us. So we have now gone through the first 8 of these. And rather than going on, all right, I'm going to stop right here. So tomorrow we'll pick it up on lesson 9, which is the longest lesson out of all of them. Then in lesson 10, that's when we'll talk about the data annotations. And finally, lesson 11, which is very short. It's like about 7 pages. We should be able to do all that by no later than 1:30 to 2 o'clock tomorrow. All right? Is this helping? Is it making sense? I mean, I'm purposely doing it. I wouldn't be surprised if Paul's farther than we are. You know what? I mean, and this is taped, so Paul, if you ever hear this, sorry, I don't care. I'm more concerned that you understand it than I am that I have to keep up exactly with what somebody else is doing. Because I want it, when we're building our own thing, I want it to make sense to you. If it doesn't, then I failed in my job. All right? Okay, that's all that I had for today then.